Okay, we're back in the shop and we're working on our elderly Volkswagen Rabbit diesel. As you guys saw, I put a water pump on this car yesterday, talked with the customer. After having the car overnight and starting it cold, it sat out in the yard, it did not want to start at all. I mean, I glowed it probably 5 times. When it did finally start, it ran on 3 cylinders and finally started working on 4, but it smoked out the town. I think that probably if you were at the International Space Station, you could have seen the smoke coming from my parking lot. And so that begged the question, does this thing have an issue? I don't have a compression tester for a diesel. I just don't do enough diesels. But I suspect the valves are out of adjustment. I don't know that. My hunch is that when it's cold, valves are tight and one cylinder is not firing. And this type of car takes these little shims. Let's see, got a whole assortment here. These are the pluckers you pluck the shims out with. These are the depression tools. I've got some for Volvos and Rabbits. I'm not sure which is which, but they all take the little bucket and shim valve adjustment. So I told the customer it's worth a shot just to check the valves. He may have a lower end problem. This car has 600,000 miles on it. I know the head has been replaced once or twice. I replaced the head maybe 3 years ago. So it may just be a simple valve adjustment. I don't know that. It could have more of a terminal issue. But I thought we'd pull the valve cover off. You guys could go through the valve adjustment with me and we'll just see. I have purposely not started this car today because I want it to be cold as I can get it. I tried starting it this morning, let it run for just a minute or two, and it was just obscene amount of smoke and really, really hard to start. So, okay, let's get to it. Let's pull this stuff off. It's pretty easy to get in here and check the valves, and we'll see what we got. Okay, we're back to our one owner, 600,000 mile Rabbit that has a starting issue, and the customer has provided approval for me to do a little research, see if I can figure this thing out. So there's a little bit of blow by. You can see there's oil in the intake manifold. There is no throttle on a 1.5 liter diesel. What we do have here is a specification sheet. You don't see this much anymore in new cars, but if you look close there, it says intake. I'm going to go with the American way, 10 thousandths of an inch exhaust, 18 thousandths. So I just rolled the car in here. It's cold. It doesn't specify cold. Oh, it says engine warm in there. So I might have to figure out what it is cold. Let's just try. We got a 10 and an 18, and we're going to go for an intake. And that is a no-go. That's tight, kind of as I thought. And let's see, here's an exhaust with the lobe standing up for an 18, and we got a no-go. So I don't know for sure, but I'm going to figure out what the cold specs are, and we will depress these guys, which are called the buckets and the shims, and see if we can loosen this thing up. I think it's really tight. I was just thinking to myself, it's possible that anyone watching this has never adjusted valves on a Volkswagen diesel before. So I'm going to show you a little bit how that works. We have the camshaft laid out right in front of us here. And if you look underneath the cam, there's called buckets and shims. And inside my shim kit here, each one of these shims is labeled with a number. That's a 3.25. I'm assuming it means millimeters. You can see that all my little bin, each little housing or hallock has a number on it. Now what I've been doing is I've been taking my feeler gauge, my trusty feeler gauge here, and I'm trying to get roughly 10 thousandths on the intake and 18 thousandths on the exhaust, cold. I have found that they're all super tight. They're all about 5 to 10 thousandths too tight, which would support my theory that a valve is hanging open when it's cold. When it's warm, it expands, or something changes, and we have 4 cylinders. I don't know. Maybe a valve is tulipped. So I have my duct tape out here, and you can see that I've done this one. This is an exhaust valve. I've got 17, if I read my writing, 17 thousandths on that one. I've got 9 thousandths on the intake. So as I said, the spec is 10 and 18. Well, sometimes you put in a disc and it's millimeters, doesn't quite convert. You can actually make the gap too large, too small. You got to kind of find something that works. And I'm finding that all these discs are on the lower end of the range. In other words, these are all 4 millimeter discs and up, and these are in the lower range. So this is a 255, 270, 275, smaller ones. All the ones on this head are right in this area, and I don't have them. I'd have to go buy some. So I'm taking out like 315s and I'm replacing them with 3.00s or 305s and trying to make it work. And I've done a little cheating here. I haven't told you how this works, but this camshaft is preloaded obviously by the cam belt there, but I can loosen these cam bearings. The cam will rise up a little bit, and that gives me a little more traction to get these tongs onto the bucket. See, the bucket's got that little slot there. That tong goes in there. But if it's depressed with my depressor, that bucket is depressed. I don't have as much perch area to get my tongs in there. So if I let the cam rise up, the bucket doesn't need to be depressed, and I can get full force and pick that disc out. The discs typically are oil hydrolocked. In other words, you got to kind of wiggle them a little bit to break the seal of the oil because they've been on there for so long. So it's really hard. You can't use a magnet until you get it loose. You've got to use these until you get it loose, and sometimes it doesn't work. So that's what I'm saying. So the ultimate goal is here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 lobes adjusted. I have 3 left, and I'm running low on the thinner shims. So I've got to try to swap them, try to manipulate this. I can buy some thinner shims. I don't even know if the store carries them anymore, but that's what I'm doing. So now I'm to the point where I've got to roll the motor over to get these lobes up top and check my remaining ones. So check my remaining 3. That's how we adjust valves in an old Volkswagen. Okay, so we're back. I just did some more checking after I rolled the motor over. This intake valve right here, you can see it's intake, has 0 lash. I couldn't get a 1 in there. And 1 is pretty thin. That's 0.001 for you Yanks, thousandths of an inch. This could be our problem. I haven't checked this intake either, but they're really tight. So I've got the cam loosened up. You can see the nuts are loose. I had to take the nuts off this one. The cam is just perched up there a little bit. I'm going to see if I can grab this. You can watch me get the tongs lined up with those little grooves there. And then once you get them on there, it's a bit of a hassle. You got to squeeze and see how that loosens. Oh, it's almost out. And I'm hoping this is not like a 290. Oh, it's a lot of holding your tongue, cussing. Oh, there we go. See, I think I can get that with a magnet now. Find my magnets. Here we go. And then on the underside of this, there's going to be a number. Aha. Unless the numbers wore off. Oh, it's a 290. Dang it. I'm sunk. 290 is the smallest I got. I've got to go smaller. I need like a 275. Well, I got to go to the parts store. All right, we're back. It's the next morning. We're working on our Project Rabbit here with a lot of miles on it and a rebuilt head, and we're trying to adjust the valves. We've determined yesterday that we have no valve clearance on intake for number 1 and intake for number 2, or 1,000ths thereabouts, and that the shims are at the lower end of the range. I've called around. Nobody has any thinner shims, which is a total bummer. I'm not sure what to do, but whenever push comes to shove, sometimes you got to make something work. So I took the shim out that was in there, the thin one, a 290. I need approximately 280, 275, and you can see I'm standing in front of my belt sander here, and I've got my trusty, handy-dandy, Chinese-made caliper, and I'm getting about 292 on this puck. I'm taking not the cam side, but the back side that has the number on it, and I'm just doing this, but it's taking forever. If I try to turn on the belt sander, it goes at such a a strong pace, I can't hold on to this without the puck flying off. So I've been holding it with my finger, starting the machine, letting it kind of rev up until it gets too hot to touch, and then turning it off again. And so far I've got 0.000 of a millimeter off. It's going to take a while. But that's the best I can do. I've talked to the customer, and there just isn't any available that are much thinner than this. So what are you going to do? Let's keep trying to make something work. We got to get some clearance on those valves. Okay, so after sanding on these little discs for enough time, I'm not getting anywheres. I've maybe got like 1/10 of a millimeter off. I know there's a parts store in town that's got some that are a little thinner, and at least I can start. These are 290s, and I know they've got 280s, and at least I could polish those. It's just taking forever. And besides, I want to take a microcar for a drive, right? You guys want to go for a drive? We got to fix this Rabbit, and we got to fix it right. And sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. All right, I cleared out a little corner of my shop. It's my paint booth area where I've been storing my little Subaru 360 with flames. Turns out it's got a bad battery, or a dead battery. It's very low. And looking at the battery here, it says 2015. That means it's 6 years old. It's about 3 years past what a good battery should be. So I'm going to bring the backup boost pack with me and see if we can get this thing charged up and see if we can get it to start. It's probably going to smoke. I know it's going to smoke. Oh, it's going to smoke. Again, you'll notice I floor jacked it out of its space, and whenever you do that, the car has not solid axles but fixed axles, and the camber is all wonky until you start driving. It does not have full independent rear suspension. Let's see what will happen here if I try to start it. Oh, we're going to give her some choke. We've got a little light on the dash now. Check the brakes are good. Oh, good. Got some crankage. Shoots fire. Come on, baby. There we go. It's only running on one, maybe two. Leave a little bit of choke on there. That should run. Oh yeah. It's gonna smoke. I think it's run on one. Okay, so the smoke has cleared out. The second cylinder has come back online. Barely smoking at all. Stella, my puppy dog, is ready to go. You ready to go? Yeah. Alright, so any day you can be out driving a Subaru 360 40 miles an hour reliably is a good day. Smoke has cleared out. The weather's okay. My dog is happy. I guess I'm happy. Now if we can just get the parts we need, it'll be a great day. All right, we were successful on our adventure to find some valve shims. I actually went to a buddy's head shop and he had some thin ones, really thin ones. So we're gonna make this thing work, I hope. Now we're gonna rip through the gears. First gear, here we go. We got no tack, we got a two-stroke. Second gear, third gear. We're going to change lanes here. Going for 60 miles an hour. Oh, we got a curve. Overdrive. We got to slow down. We don't want to tip over. Oh, darn, we are hindered by a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone. Perfect. Stella is not impressed that our adventure did not result in any squirrels. She's still looking though. There's always a squirrel out there. Car ran great. Need to keep these old clunkers running. Gotta drive them. Okay, so my trip to the machine shop with my buddies turned out to be a gold mine. Look at these ones with little holes in them. They're 2.3 millimeters. And that is exactly what I needed on these two intake valves. I just had no clearance. I now have 10 thousandths clearance minimum on everything, whereas before I had 0. So the intake valves are 10 and the exhausts are supposed to be 18. And I'm really close on all of them. It's hard to read my scribbling up there, but we've got something. So let's put it back together. Let's roll this thing outside, start it up, and hopefully it'll start better. I know it's got to run better. All right, so we rolled our Volkswagen Rabbit out of the shop so we don't smoke up the inside of the shop. And if you recall, this car came in a couple days ago for a leaky water pump, and the customer complained of hard starting. He thought there was something wrong with the battery. As soon as I let it set overnight, I determined that the engine was turning over fine, but it only had compression on 3 cylinders, possibly 2. A quick valve check determined that there was 0 valve clearance on at least 2 intake valves. All the other valves were too tight. And now the intake valves might be a little loose, but I'd rather have them be loose by 1/1000th than too tight by too much. So we're put back together here. The car is completely cold, have not started it. We're gonna try to start it. Stella is interested in something. What do you want, girl? Oh. And it's approximately 50 degrees outside, so we'll see what happens here. I'm going to glow this thing a little longer than normal. So we're going to turn the key, let it glow. Now, the customer says I'm supposed to use this advancer. This is a timing advance pull deal, so I'm going to pull that out too. That might help it start. I thought that was just an idle riser or like a choke. So our glow plugs have clicked off. Make sure it's out of gear. Okay, let's see what happens here. Oh my Lanta! It just fired right up. Ha ha! Oh, and how about the smoke? No smoke! Holy smokes! Holy smokes, Stella! This thing was a terrible smoker. I'm gonna turn the advancer off. Doesn't seem to make much difference. Oh, wow. And look at that. The engine is not jumping out of the... Oh my goodness. What do you know? I can hear a little bit of rattling, but... Oh, he's going to be so happy. I mean, talk about going from smoke city to no smoke. We've got smooth. And I mean smooth. Oh, he's going to love this thing. That's fantastic. All right, I'm going to warm it up, probably drive around a little bit and make sure everything's good. Oh, he's going to be so happy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching another successful car being fixed. Got to keep these old clunkers on the road, right? Right? That makes me so happy. Always check the basics. Always check the basics.